Hello BookTube, and welcome back to my library tour for 2022. A visual record, a walkthrough of all the books that I currently own. This is going to take quite some time. I am filming this video 6 or 7 hours before I usually do this, in an experiment to see if we could get rid of this weird backlighting, but it's not possible. It's not going to happen. The backlighting is going to stay the same no matter what, unless I were to do this at night, in which case I don't think there'd be enough light in this room to film. I ordinarily don't film videos this early in the day because I, believe it or not, am a firm believer in business before pleasure. I'm lucky in that most of my business is fairly pleasant, but even so, I like to get a great swath of work done before I indulge myself in talking to my imaginary BookTube friends or anything else. But it's not going to make a difference. But I did test beforehand, and although I'm still in sexy backlighting, the covers of the books are perfectly clear, and that's what I care about. So we'll go on to this next shelf. This is the last one that I can do before I have to move the camera. And we'll have transverse books first, just like last time. So we'll deal with those. Okay, this is a theme that's been coming out a lot in these last few library tours. The fact that I'm in my little book room, for those of you who are maybe new to the library tour, I have a little sanctum sanctorum, a little book room. It's got my pre-World War I metal bed frame. It's got a green shaded banker's lamp on the nightstand, and it is the walls are covered in books. It's a thing that I always do in a place where I go to live. I find a very small room, the smallest room with a window, and just fill it with books, and that's fine by me. I like a little space like that. This space is actually too big. I would like it to be half the size of what it is, but there isn't an available room like that here. Or rather, there is. There's a room here that would be perfect, but it has no independent egress. You have to walk through the rest of the place to get to it. So it doesn't do me any good. But what was that digression about? Oh, right, yes. The fact that although this is my little book room, this is where all books in the world long to be. They long to die and go to book heaven, which is little book rooms like this in any fervent reader's home. I hope that you have one of your own. I think most readers that I know find a way to make a little room, a little space for themselves. It doesn't have to be big, but you have to be able to shut the door. You have to be able to shut the door on the world and just be with your books. Because this is my little book room, you would often think, I sometimes even characterize it as being immutable, but it's not. There are plenty of new things in here, new additions that I managed to find room for. And this is one of them. This is How to Be Content. We got this just the other day, was it late last year, something like that? This is Princeton University Press. They do these little volumes of classical Greek and Roman authors, usually in translation facing pages, and usually set around a theme. So how to topple a dictator, how to be a dictator, how to get drunk, all that sort of thing. This is Horace, who wrote a great deal about contentment, oddly enough. He was torn. The two sides of his nature were torn completely between the bustle and noise of the city, where something is always happening, and the sweetness and comfort of the countryside, where he had a little farm. Famously, he had a little farm that just barely kept him, so he could theoretically have lived there and not ever spent time in Rome, but he split his time between. And this book is new translations by Stephen Harrison of most of the contented poems, not the hustle and bustle poems. Okay, then another new arrival, comparatively speaking. This is Served Cold, a horror tube anthology. This is the advanced copy. This is an anthology of horror stories by booktubers. A lot of people that you subscribe to, probably, including yours truly. I wrote the introduction to this volume, and I have a short story in here, the first short story of mine to be in print under my own name in over a decade, which was really, really a lot of fun. This was the brainchild of Regina St. Clair, who's has a booktube channel at Regina's Haunted Library. I'm sure that you subscribe to it. It's wonderful. She has a gift, I think, for this kind of thing. I have been involved in many, many, many anthologies over the eons, many of them. I've never actually headed any one myself, but I've been involved in the construction of many literary anthologies. And I know from a mile off when someone has a gift for this sort of thing. They might not want to have a gift because it's an ordeal to do something like this. You might not think it, but it is. To organize everything, get cats to walk in parade, organize the finances, make sure that the printing and the cover art and all of it is done right. That has to be one person. If you have a committee of people doing that, you're going to have a bad anthology. And that one person takes on the labors of Hercules. She's really good at it. So naturally, I'm hoping she does another one and lets me be involved. Then the last Transverse book is a biggie. It's huge. And you would think technically, like, for instance, yesterday we saw The Greeks and Greek Love by Jim Davidson. You'd think maybe this doesn't belong here because it's just a straight up work of history. But I love it so much that I couldn't not have it in here. And that is this, The Rise and Fall of the Third Reich by William Shirer. This is a massive work of his from a man who was there and saw the rise and fall of the Third Reich. And it is eloquent. It's extremely detailed. It's unbelievably passionate. That's the thing I love most about it, is that it was written in white heat of anger and the long, slow burn of the deepest indignation imaginable. In other words, it's not emotionally detached the way so many Third Reich histories are that are written today, understandably so, because they're written by people who heard about it from their fathers or their grandfathers. This is something different than that. I don't think, in my own opinion, I don't think that much of the scholarship, the research in here, has been significantly outdated. I think it's still an excellent biography of the Third Reich, in addition to being by far the most readable one. So, then we'll move on to the actual shelf, and we go from the Third Reich to something quite a bit different, although connected. Those of you who know the author's history will know that it is connected. This is What Ho? This is a collection of Bertie Wooster stories. Or actually, this has an introduction by Stephen Fry, but despite the fact that it has What Ho, which is Bertie Wooster's exclamation of choice, for which he is constantly being reprimanded by his Aunt Agatha, please don't talk that way. But even so, I don't think this is just Jeeves and Wooster. No, it's not. This is all of it. This is a selection of Jeeves, a selection of Blanding's Castle, selections of the Drones Club, golf stories. Fantastic. Even essays are in here. This has an essay on W.C. Fields, an essay, letters to Ira Gershwin, because Woodhouse was deeply involved in the glory days of musical Hollywood, of musical Broadway. But this has essays as well, and letters. Fantastic. So I have many anthologies of Woodhouse. This one is just one of them. I don't know how I even came across it, but each one serves a need in their own right. Sometimes you just want Mrs. Mulliner. Sometimes you just want P. Smith. But they ought to all be together. Whether they serve a separate purpose or not, they all ought to be together. I ought to have a shelf of P.G. Woodhouse. Not now, but once I'm done with this room, I will be massively reorganizing this room. And who knows whether that will free up space. Surely that will free up space. Anyway, this next one is by Raymond Brown. This is an introduction to the New Testament. Big, fat thing. Very scholarly, very good, very erudite walkthrough of the basics of reading the New Testament, which you don't need. Keep in mind, you can just get a little, do I have an example here? Yeah. You can get a little book, The Illustrated Gospels. It has no notes or introductions at all. It has no critical apparatus in any way. And still get a lifetime of reading out of it. But Brown is great. Absolutely fantastic. And this is a fantastic book. Who did this? Yale did this, and they also made the odd decision to come out with a shorter version of this, an abridged version of the Introduction to the New Testament. Once you're introduced to this author, once you know this author and start to read him, the last thing you're going to want is to abridge any of his works. They're all so good. I don't have that abridged version, but I think, do I have the slip on this? No, I have an invoice. I managed to save an invoice. How disgusting is that? I got this copy in the mail from Yale, and I got rid of it. I think I sent it to somebody. I was going to say one of you, but this was long before we were talking with each other. I sent it to somebody. I sent books out to people all the time. It's a thing that I love to do, but it ends up creating holes in my library that then just mystify me. I'll come across a hole and say, "What happened?" The answer is pretty obvious. I go to the post office all the time. At least I did, and I am starting to again now that COVID restrictions are easing in Boston. But Yale sent me this, and I got rid of it. And then years and years later, they sent me the abridged version of this, and I got it. I wrote to the publicist and said, I'm very grateful for this, but is there any chance you could send me the unabridged version again? And they did, so I'm not letting go of this one. And you can see right away, again, the note that I'm hitting here. The first shelf of this bookcase had The Day the Revolution Began by N.T. Wright. The second shelf had The New Testament in Its World by N.T. Wright and a co-author. And now on the third shelf, we have this. I need, in other words, a Christianity shelf. And I don't have it. I should have it. But the day will come. Oh my, okay. All right, this was a contentious book, this next one. Also fairly new. Wow, this is full of reviews. What I tend to do is, if I know that a book is getting widely reviewed, I will, if I'm coming across multiple reviews of a book, I will pull them out and put them in the book, so I know exactly where to find them. None of this business of keeping those things in a filing cabinet or a filing box arranged by year when I know I'm never going to go looking for them. Instead, put them in the book where you know you'll find them. This is by Edward J. Epstein. It's called How America Lost Its Secrets. Edward Snowden, the Man and the Theft. And this is a very, very negative, damning, critical look at Edward Snowden. Not the heroic looks at him that have prevailed. That narrative has prevailed. But rather a damning look. And I reviewed this for the Christian Science Monitor, but I don't have a printer. So probably the one mainstream review that I don't have, that isn't in here is my own. If I remember, I'll try and find it and leave a link to it. I really wish that I had a working printer, but then again, science has not perfected a working printer. As you know, in your own personal life, since you have a printer in your home that doesn't work. Yeah, it's on a fritz. I don't know what's wrong with it. Yeah. And if you talk to people at work, at the cubicle, at the DMV or whatever, and ask them, do you have a working printer? They'll say, well, I've got a printer. It doesn't work. No, it needs a cartridge of some kind, or I need to have somebody look at it, or because there is no such thing as a working printer. Instead, there's a printed oncer. You pay $800 for a big machine. You get it installed in your home. It prints something, and then it never works again. So it's a printed oncer. But if I had a working printer, I would print out all of my reviews from, the mainstream press, and I would put one in here. Oh no, the same thing. This next one is the same thing. Well, that's rather annoying. This is by Michael Benton, and it is Dinosaurs Rediscovered. Great illustrated book, just the latest, there we go. Hot times in the old town tonight. The latest this is just a popular book about the latest research on dinosaurs, what they looked like, where they lived, how they lived, were they social, did they raise their young with care and attention. And I reviewed this, and my review is one of the only ones that I haven't stuffed in here. And once again, not to be tedious or anything, but there should be a whole shelf for dinosaur books. There is a whole shelf's worth in this room. They're not all together though. Okay, here's another one that we've seen a couple of these. Here's another one. This is the Black Lizard books. Black Lizard does the big book of. They're really neat. They're really, really good. Well worth collecting, all of them. And this is the big book of ghost stories, which is a hefty thing and double column. So you're really getting a lot of stuff in here. The anthology ranges from way in the past. This is edited by the great Otto Penzler, and this goes way into the past and comes all the way to the present. So you've got all the usual suspects, Lafcadio O'Hearn and E.F. Benson, but also this collection has How Fear Departed the Long Gallery, one of my favorite E.F. Benson ghost stories. I didn't know that I have a tiny little book of that alone. I didn't know that it was in this anthology. I'd completely forgotten. But the Mark Twain and anybody who's put their hand to a classic ghost story. And it's a great anthology. These Black Lizard big books are fantastic. They are just great. I've never read one that wasn't good. Okay, what have we got next here? Oh, all right. This is a UK trade paperback. I dearly love my UK trade paperbacks. It's a book that I've read many times. Know quite a bit about its origin. This is The Gene by Siddhartha Mukherjee. This is the author of the great book, The Emperor of All Maladies. And this is his study of the gene, how it was discovered, how we know about it, what it does, how it affects the lives of people whose health is affected by something genetic. Those of you who know this author, I imagine most of you would know this author from The Emperor of All Maladies, but he's fantastic. His popular writing about medicine, all things medical, is just incredible. So you're in good hands. Okay, all right, this next one is very battered. It has been loved to death. I mentioned it just yesterday. This is edited by Leonard Woolf. This is The Essential Dracula, where he gives you the text of Dracula with lots of snarky footnotes at the bottom of almost every page. And the footnotes are not what you would expect. They are from a diehard, lifelong fan of Dracula, clarifying all kinds of things and arguing with all kinds of things. The footnotes are a joy. They're an absolute joy in this book. He did The Essential Dracula, he did The Essential Frankenstein, which we saw yesterday, and he also did The Essential Jekyll and Hyde, which I don't think I have anymore. I think I'm a super fan of Jekyll and Hyde. Wrote to me, and I said, well, boy, have I got a book for you. You haven't read it, and you really should. And I don't think I've ever seen it after that, which is the risk you run if you mail a book out of your personal collection, instead of doing what I should do, which is to tell people I am perfectly happy to find a book and mail it to you. Perfectly happy to do that. No matter where you live, I will eventually find the time and the money to send you a book. The key part of that should always be, I will find and mail you a book, not I will mail you a book. In other words, I'm going to go to my shelf, grab something, and send it to you, because then I am lacking that book. And there's no reason for that. There would be a reason for that if I had a huge collection and lived in, Wrong Turn, Arizona, where there aren't any bookstores for 500 miles, so all I've got to use is my own book collection, but I don't. I live within easy distance of many venues of used bookstores, many tributaries of used books constantly flowing past me. That's what I should do. If I could only ironclad adopt that policy, then I wouldn't be showing you The Essential Dracula and saying that I really want The Essential Jekyll and Hyde and don't have it, when I once did. But I have many editions of Dracula in this room. If you are a fan of Dracula and you somehow haven't read The Essential Dracula, make it your next Dracula reread, because you're going to love it. Absolutely love it. It is quite different from Leslie Klinger, for instance, for Harvard, or W.W. Norton. The great editor Leslie Klinger did an annotated Dracula that is fantastically good. It is fantastically good, but it's a dutiful annotation. Whereas Leonard Woolf is arguing with the text, or cheering it on, or arguing with its readers or its fans. It's a different kind of annotation experience. Okay, then we have another Otto Penzler production. This is another Black Lizard. Is this, well, Pantheon. This is the big book of Sherlock Holmes stories, which came out simultaneously, as I think a lot of these things do. It came out simultaneously in hardcover and paperback at the same time. This is the same way. It's double columned. What on earth is this? Oh my God, it's a receipt. Oh, God help us. I don't know if it's my receipt, but this has, you've got the double column spread, so you can really fit a lot in here. And this, I think the big book of Sherlock Holmes stories starts off with Conan Doyle, as you'd expect that it would, right? Oh boy, this has everything. Just everything. Bret Hart, Vincent Starrett, O. Henry, Stephen Leacock, Stephen King, Kingsley Amis. Oh boy. Just everything. Okay, this has little pieces from Conan Doyle about how Watson learned the trick, that sort of thing. But I don't know that this has just a full-length Sherlock Holmes story. Oh, God. Lauren Esselman is in here, Peter Tremaine, John Lutz. Fantastic. Just fantastic. No, this does not. Okay, so these are Sherlock Holmes pastiches. A fantastic anthology of Sherlock Holmes pastiches. With the unlike the Black Lizard books, this one has a built-in bookmark. Very nice. And the paperback, of course, did not. I think that's why I plopped for the hardcover. Then we've got How to Do Things with Books in Victorian Britain by Leah Price. Another comparatively new book. When did this come out? This was 2012. So before we were talking to each other, but well into my time back in book reviewing. It's what Victorians did with books. Not just a question of how they decorated them or how they produced them or how they annotated them, but lots of other things as well. How they mutilated them for their own purposes or whatnot. A fantastic bit of research, but it doesn't read like research. It's not dry. at all. But it is, obviously, as you can tell, a book about books, which means it doesn't belong in here. I have a gigantic bookcase of books about books, and it's not here. And we've come across 5 or 6 books just in this part of the library tour that don't belong in here. They belong on that bookcase, which would free up room in here. Okay, all right, we're ending as we began. We end with Horace. This is the Bibliophile Society. I don't know anything about them. Jason Harrington would probably know all about the Bibliophile Society and how valuable their books is. I found this copy in battered shape at the Brattle Bookshop. This is the Odes and Epodes of Horace, Volume 1. See, the Bibliophile Society, there we go. And this, despite the title of the book, does not have the Odes and Epodes of Horace in it. Instead, it has essays about Horace. There's a couple of biographical reconstructions in here. Let me show you the frontispiece here. If we can get to it. This was privately printed. It's a numbered edition, so it's got really thick, heavy paper, which is really nice, but it can suffer when you are rough with your books, as I tend to be. Let's get to the opening here. Or maybe it's not going to have one. I mean, it's not a commercial book, so it doesn't need it. I guess it does. There we go. This has a couple of biographical studies of Horace. It has a couple of literary studies of Horace. It has a very, very good essay on Horace and his translators, which, of course, is a period piece now, because Horace has had many, many translators since this. But that essay, you're never going to find any of these things anywhere else. So there was a time there where I was assiduously collecting anything that I could find about Horace. And I still have all of those books. They're just not all together. They're not all together. But anyway, that is this latest shelf. The experiment of filming in the morning is a failure. It makes no difference. It's not a failure. The video worked. But there's no reason for me to do this when I can just wait till my normal time. I wanted to try it, though. So that is our next shelf, and the next one would require me, if I were going to keep the camera where it is, I would have to stoop out of range for all of it. So I have to move the camera, which is a headache, and which means we are moving closer and closer to the death match, which is sitting on the floor. The things I suffer for you people. But I'll be back with another shelf. So we'll see you then. Thank you, BookTube.